You know what your job is, right? Guy, you gotta lead the pledge. Come on, if everybody could please rise for the pledge. The flag's over here today. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So we got a little bit of a busy night. Hey, sit down, make yourself comfortable. We got a little bit of a busy night. We're gonna try to wrap it up quickly as possible. I want to thank Mother Karen for allowing us to use the facilities. Thank you. We're very lucky in this neighborhood. We have houses of worship that are always willing to open up their spaces. That's very important, especially with the community work that we do. We have 3 city council candidates tonight, 2 district attorney candidates tonight, which is cool because I hate when there's only one. So at least now we're going to hear both perspectives, and one's a Republican, which is rare lately because Republicans don't really run anymore. So you know what? This should be fun. One of the city council candidates is running a little bit late, which is fine. Here's the way we're going to do it, and it should work. It's worked for us in the past. We're going to do 3 minutes intro. Everybody has postcards. If you can write your questions on the postcard, you want to write city council, district attorney, or a particular question for any of the candidates, just write their name on top. Once everybody's done with their 3 minutes, we're going to walk around and collect them. We're going to bring them up here. We're going to weed out the duplicates, and we're going to do the best we can to ask the questions that you guys write down. I want to start singing. Okay, so once that's out of the way, we're going to ask the questions. We're going to do 30-second responses. I think that'll work. So each candidate can respond. If it's a question to one particular candidate, we'll give that candidate a minute to respond to the question if it's directed at them. I know sometimes it gets heated. I'm going to ask the candidates, let's be respectful. Let's not do it back and forth. Answer the question. You know when you're running for office, you're going to get someone that's going to say something and is going to try to say something about someone. You can answer that when you answer your question, or when you get your next question, you can say, address that. But that's up to you, just so that we limit the back and forth so we can keep it flowing smoothly. We have five concerts this year coming up. Francis Lewis Park, 5. Radio Days, the Project, thank you. The 507, which is a local band. It's Dorian's son and local kids. They're like a rock band. We got Angelo Venuto coming again, and we got DJ Danny, who's going to do a freestyle night in the park where he's going to DJ. So that should be fun. So 5. These concerts are not cheap. We don't get money from any elected representative yet. That's why I said yet, right, guys? When you run and you win, you know, the businesses in the neighborhood pay for it. Each business sponsors the concerts, and it's a $500 donation to sponsor the concerts. And then when Family Fun Day comes along, same thing, $500 to $1,000 donation. I think we're up to like $16,000 so far in sponsorships, which should cover all of the concerts and all of the other expenses that come with the concerts. So I'm gonna ask you, when you see the list of sponsors, make it a point to support these local businesses. Make it a point to let them know. You saw their name on the flyer. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for doing that. Because it's a big expense, especially the way things are nowadays. $500 here, $500 there adds up. I know there were some people that had some issues that they wanted to speak to the police about. I reached out to the 109. I got Sergeant Murphy and the NCOs here. If you have some issues or any concerns that you want to address with the 109, I ask that you go to the back of the room, take it outside so that you don't disturb everything else that's going on, and I ask that you do it at the end of the meeting so you get here you stay for the whole meeting. My favorite part of the night, and even though this is not my baby, this is these ladies that put this together and these ladies that pushed it, because I hate reading all over the place. So last year we did a scholarship night, and the kids had to write an essay. And the essay was
Why we love Whitestone.
why we love Whitestone. So we had local kids write essays. We had a bunch of entries. I read most of them. If it was up to me, I'd pick them all, and we'd be broke. So Mr. Schroeder, who's not here tonight, he read them all, and he was the judge, and he picked the top 4. One of the kids had to run because he had a football game, so he picked his up and he read, but he came to pick it up, which was nice. So the other winners, I believe they're all here. And this one here is impressive because this was a late entry who then wound up getting honorable mention because he followed all of the rules to a T. He was the only one, right? He was the only one to follow the rules on this to the T. And came up with an honorable mention. And out of, I think it was like a couple of hundred essays that came in. So, Eduardo Osso, where are you? Hello, everybody. Okay. I'm asking them questions, don't worry. Smile.
Congratulations.
You dropped the most important part. Wait, smile. Thank you. I'm not going to get into this girl and her parents, but her parents happen to be friends of mine. They're very meticulous, great people, local people. The mom is an excellent writer. The daughter might be a little bit of a better writer, but we'll see. Marilena Corajayas. Both my kids went to that school.
I know.
Best school in the district, and that's just because Bell Academy. Congratulations, honey. There you go. Take a picture of her alone. That's the better picture. I'm ruining it.
No, you make it good too. Love it. Thank you.
That was high school. This is middle school.
No, that's middle school.
Yes, now this is high school.
Right, that's the middle school. I'm sorry, Bell Academy's the middle school. I don't know what high school this kid goes to yet, but we'll find out. This is the high school prize. Brendan Farrell, where are you? There you go. Wait, congratulations. What school you go to? What's the middle school? Latin. Okay, wait, hold this. Oh, he goes to Brooklyn Latin. All right. All right, that explains a lot. Hold it like that so they can take a picture. And I'll move out of your way. Ready? All right, go ahead. Congratulations, guys. Great essays, great writing.
They'll be published on the website.
They're going to all be published on the website, the winners, so you can read them and you can see why they won. Now, see, we ran through that really fast. Look at that. All right, so. Yeah, no. No.
The children.
The kids don't gotta go anywhere yet. Don't worry about it. They were saying they can leave if they want to. No, the parents are gonna stay. But kids, if the kids gotta go home and do homework, that's fine. Yeah, I get it. Okay.
You have to go home and do it. We have to pick up your things.
Okay. First up, running for Queens DA, Judge George Grasso.
So to start off with, I want to briefly apologize if I sound like I'm going fast, but we've got 3 minutes.
We can do 4.
And 3 or 4 minutes. They're pretty complicated scenarios that we're dealing with here. But I'll be glad to answer any follow-up questions anybody has. So first of all, always great to see my former colleagues from the NYPD. How about a round of applause for the people who protect us every day? So I started as a New York City police officer back in 1979. I was started as a foot cop in Jamaica, Queens, out of the 113 precinct. I went to law school at night, the St. John's program. I became a steady midnight cop in Flatbush, Brooklyn, in the 63rd precinct. I went through every rank you can think of in the NYPD, through Deputy Commissioner Legal Matters. I was 5 years Chief Lawyer for the NYPD, 8 years First Deputy Police Commissioner. They'll tell you number 2 in the NYPD under Ray Kelly, 2002, 2010. I'm very proud to say I was part of the team. I was a captain mid-career when Bill Braden came in '94, and we had over 2,000 murders a year in this town. A lot of people remember that. Bill Braden, Jack Maple, a Queens kid from Richmond Hill, they had this idea: quality of life, fare evasion, aggressive panhandling, street-level drug dealing. We could turn it around. They tapped me to help write. I was one of the authors of the original NYPD quality of life strategy. I was part of the original ComStats, where we pulled the data together and we finally started doing data-driven policing. Fast forward, how'd that work? By 2017, 2018, we had New York City, a population that went up to over 8 million, down to under 300 murders a year. Every year was better than the next. And then the geniuses in the New York State Legislature stepped in 2019, so-called bail reform, driven by the hard left but signed by Andrew Cuomo, pushed by Heastie, who's the Assembly leader, Cousins, the Senate leader, and I'm a registered Democrat, 40-year registered Democrat, but that's not my Democrat Party, what they did. They took half the penal law off the table. They took drug dealing off the table. Fare evasion, gone. Assaults, gone. They even hit burglaries. Ridiculous. What were these people thinking? Commit these crimes as many times as you want? Judges, and I was a judge then. I did 13 years as a judge, from a Kings County Criminal Court judge to Supreme Court Administrative Judge in Queens. When I left this past August, they ripped away judicial discretion. No basis to look at what are we dealing with. What's the rap sheet look like? What's the recidivism look like? Did they come to court? It was to pursue a political agenda. They got this Rikers Island plan. Let me tell you about the plan to close Rikers Island. It's based on a lie. A 3,300 daily population. We've got 6,000 now, and it's going up because of these bogus plans. And they don't stop. Governor Hochul just said, I'm going to take it on. She didn't take anything on. Least restrictive means is removed. That's not the issue. It's dangerousness. It's dangerousness. Bail reform. If a case doesn't meet certain timelines, judges have to throw it out. Queens plummeted to a 5% felony conviction rate in 2021. Oh, and by the way, you know who was smiling and waving at the Hochul press conference when they declared the so-called victory? The current District Attorney Melinda Katz. You go to my website, you're going to see number 1, a plan for quality of life. Bring it back. You know what your numbers are here in the 109th precinct over the last 2 years under Katz? Robberies are up triple digits. Felony assaults are up triple digits. Grand larcenies are up triple digits. Grand larceny auto up triple digits. She only woke up in the last 6 months when she had a real opponent. I'm a real opponent. I walked out of my judgeship August 22. My term was not up until December 31st of 24 because I would not sit by silently and let this continue. I'm here because I can change things. I think I'm seeing 3 minutes in the side of my eye. I'll be around. I'll be happy to answer more questions. Thank you.
To be honest, we gave you 4, so we're going to give everybody else 4. All right? Next candidate up, also for District Attorney, under the Republican line, Mike Mossa.
Hi, and thank you for the Whitestone Civic Association for inviting me. Well, I been practicing law for 20 years. I'm a Queens resident, Howard Beach resident. My office is at Ozone Park. You know, I wear out a path between landlord-tenant, which is really how you find the pulse of Queens if you go to landlord-tenant court, and criminal court. This is one of the odd circumstances. I never find myself agreeing with a Democrat as much. I got to hand it to the judge. I agree with almost everything he says, except the origin of a few things. In the late 80s, New York City was in a dismal place. And the man who turned New York City around was Rudy Giuliani, not Bill Bratton. Bill Bratton helped, but it was Rudy that turned it. And we have a one-party system. Even coming here, they said they hardly see any Republicans. That is the problem. And like the judge said, yes, the party has gone to the left. Of course, bail reform is ridiculous. But the truth is, if we had a Republican governor or enough Republican legislatures, you never would have had bail reform. We wouldn't have had this discussion. Rikers Island shouldn't be closed. Quite frankly, I tell people, and by the way, I know we only have 3 minutes, so I'm not going to get into my story. 4 minutes, well.
We have 2.5 left.
It'll be very quick. I had hearings in Rikers Island. And when you're in Rikers Island having a hearing, and you're a private attorney, everybody else gets a free attorney, so I'm the only private attorney there. And attorneys walk around this, they have their files, and they're not paying attention, like, you know. And you'll hear the officer, the corrections officer, starts screaming to clear the hallway because they're moving a prisoner. Now, why am I saying that? That's how dangerous it is. But meanwhile, they emptied out Rikers Island during the pandemic, and they unleashed those people, okay, on the people of New York City and particularly Queens. Again, I agree that Rikers Island must stay open. They could make, and their idea is to put community jails in good neighborhoods like this, the multifamily housing, to put migrants. The idea is to, and when you don't enforce shoplifting laws, okay, when you don't enforce property crime, okay, what you're doing is you're bringing down middle-class neighborhoods. So we need to stand up and fight, and I would like people, even registered Democrats, to consider, because I think the silent majority of registered Democrats are sick and tired of the elites of their party pushing this down people's throat. And it is imperative that we have a strong two-party system. Okay, if we don't have a strong two-party system, New York is just going to, and it's already slipping. We lost electoral votes to Florida. So it's happening already. This isn't somebody saying, oh, you know, the straw that broke the camel's back. Hopefully the camel's back is not broken already. But we must turn it around, and you must consider Republicans, okay? And we have to be included for the solutions, especially the solutions of Queens. Queens is the embodiment of a middle-class county. Any questions? I'd be happy to answer.
Well, we're going to do that later.
Okay,
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I don't know if this guy's a Democrat or a Republican. I should have asked and I didn't, but he'll tell us. Eastern District Judge, William Shanahan. And you're a local, right?
Yes, yes.
There you go.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Usually they save the boringest candidates for the last. So, judicial candidates are traditionally the most boring candidates. We're not allowed to be political. We're not allowed to take political stances. We just have to give our qualifications and tell you that we will be fair and impartial as judges. But let me just tell you a little bit about myself. I'm not only a judicial candidate for this area. I live up the road. I live a few blocks away. I live in Le Havre. I've lived there for the last 20 years. And I'm a lifelong Queens resident. I grew up in Woodhaven. Went to school at Cathedral Prep Seminary in Elmhurst.
Sorry, I grew up in Elmhurst.
Oh.
I get excited when I hear it.
I didn't be a priest. I didn't become a priest, but then I did go on to St. John's Law School, and I did work as a prosecutor for many years in Nassau County. So after leaving the district attorney's office, I've been on every side of the law. I've been on the defense side, I've been on the civil side, the landlord-tenant side. I basically have lived in the courtroom for the last 32 years. Unfortunately, I never got to appear before Judge Grasso, but I have had trials against his son,
No.
who's also a prosecutor. And
Okay.
yes, we had a very nice trial. He beat me. His son. Yeah. So a lot of times people say, they want to ask you what your position is, and you really shouldn't have a position as a judge. Right? I say if I'm elected as a judge, and you come into my courtroom, when you leave the courtroom, you should be asking yourself, is he a Republican or is he a Democrat? You should know. A judge isn't supposed to render a decision based upon his politics. Right? Even if he disagrees with the outcome, he has to follow the law. And so if I'm elected, you may come before me in a small claims court matter, a landlord-tenant court matter. It shouldn't matter what party I'm running on, but or with. And I am running on the Republican line with Vicky Palladino. I am endorsed, thank you. I'm endorsed by also Joanne Ariola, the city councilwoman in Howard Beach. But one of the things that you should look at, most people don't look at judicial candidates and they don't look at their backgrounds. But you can actually look me up. Real quick, last year they had a picture of a judge, a judicial candidate under my name, William D. Shanahan. It turns out there's a judge in North Carolina named William D. Shanahan. And they got his picture, they put it on my internet site. And I said, keep it, he's a good-looking guy. But one of the things that unlike political candidates who are not necessarily vetted, judicial candidates are. And you can look at the New York City, what is it again? The City Bar, New York City Bar Association. And they actually do a very good investigation. They're not political. And they look at your background. They call all the judges you've appeared before. They look at your writings, and they really do an investigation. And I'm proud that the last 2 years I've gone before them, and each year they found me qualified to be a judge.
20 seconds.
And the last 2 years I've ran Queens County wide, unlike this year, which is just this district. And 2 of the judges I ran against were found not qualified, that they didn't have the experience, they didn't have the knowledge, and yet they're judges. And I've appeared before them, which is, interesting. But take a look at the New York City Bar Association rankings, all right? Thank you all for your time.
I want to mention that we reached out to the current District Attorney Melinda Katz. We had other people reach out to her. And I was told by other groups that had candidates night, don't waste your time. She's not even going to respond. She never responded to me or a few other people. So I want to thank the 2 of you for coming, for taking the time, because it is important, especially the district attorney position, and our current district attorney, for whatever reason, felt that she didn't have to be here tonight.
Can we split the time 2 minutes, Maurice?
I knew he was going to be the one.
There will be questions, so maybe we'll give you the extra time then.
So
No, and you know what? I like that you speak your mind. That's good.
we had it set up where we were going to go alphabetically with Avella, Bae, and Graziano. Avella's running late, so we're going to go with the second letter in the alphabet, Christopher Bae, running for city council. With the really cool blue shirt that I think I might want one.
All right. Well, Alfredo, if you want one, I got one with your name on it.
There you go.
All right. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Christopher Bae. I'm running for City Council, District 19. I want to say thank you to Alfredo and We Love Whitestone for having me again. And it is an honor to be in front of Judge Grasso here. I feel like I've heard his speech a few times. It varies and he changes it up. But at the end of the day, I agree with a lot of it. And I just have to say that he's a very well-respected jurist, especially in Queens County. And I've had the honor of serving with his son, Joe Grasso, at the DA's office as well. So look, I was a career prosecutor through and through, over 7 years at the Queens District Attorney's Office. I served under multiple administrations, first under Judge Richard Brown. There was a transition period, then under Melinda Katz. So I've certainly seen both styles of administration, both approaches, different approaches to criminal justice. However, when I was in the trenches with my colleagues in felony trials, yes, the then governor took bail reform, discovery reform, and shoved it down our throats, and that effectively made all of our jobs a lot harder. We have to operate within the law, and we do what we can, and I know my colleagues are still in the trenches now doing what they can, but I've realized, sometimes you have to step away from that situation to do more for the community, and that's why I'm here. Yes, across the board, the metrics are not looking good. I'm not trying to sensationalize it. I'm not saying it's the end of the world right now, but we are not trending in the right direction as it comes to crime. And with that being said, we need to be supporting our colleagues at the DA's offices. We need to be supporting NYPD to make it even and fair. Because look, maybe bail reform was in response to some tactics like stop and frisk and other issues that some communities felt disenfranchised. Maybe, and I get that. But now we've come too far. We've come to a place now where, like the judge said, judges need more discretion at the point of bail. Specific qualified offenses, that's a term of art that judges use and legislators use. And quite frankly, I don't think the folks that wrote these laws know or knew exactly what they were doing. Things like if you drive your car, if you steal a car, you're driving it recklessly, and the judge doesn't have discretion to set bail, what are we doing here? The same with burglaries. If you're in your living room and you see someone climbing in through your window and you see that person out in your neighborhood the next day, how can the folks in our community have faith in our criminal justice system? I know these issues inside and out. I will be fighting with our elected officials and hopefully working with our state legislatures to say, hey, look, this is not making sense. Our community is afraid, but we are strong, we are resilient, and we'll fight this. So I promise I'll fight with you on that front. Just very quickly, born and raised in Bayside, I went to Bronx Science, SUNY Binghamton, CUNY Law School. I'm really proud of the fact that I am a product of the public school system, all in New York. My mother, she works in the public school system herself as an educator with 3rd grade special needs children. Right now, it is a critical time to truly invest in our public education, our public school systems, our students, our educators, to really, if we're going to solve any of the bigger picture issues here, it starts with our children. Our children are the future. I will fight City Hall to make sure that they do not cut the funding for our public school systems, and we will make sure to invest in our students. Thank you very much.
All right, next up, many of you know him anyway. He's been to our meetings. He's helped us out on a few issues. Paul Graziano.
Let's see if I can. Sorry, my nephew's here and he's videoing the entire event. Hi, everybody. Paul Graziano. Nice to see all of you. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Judge Grasso, and the other candidates, the judicial candidate and I'm sorry, what's her name again, sir? Michael Mossa. Okay, sorry. No shade on you. Just want to make sure I get your name out again. Michael Mossa, everybody.
Make sure you nail hopefully on the multifamily house.
Thank you. So it's nice to be here tonight. Some of you saw me about a month ago where I was at your meeting discussing what was going on with some of the land use issues, which we'll talk about later. But let me tell you a little bit about myself. I'm born and bred in Northeast Queens. I've lived in North Flushing my entire life. I actually live in the house next door to the house that I grew up in. My folks are right next door. And I'm raising my 7-year-old in 1st grade at PS 209 in Clearview Gardens, as well as having 2 stepsons who are 21 and 28 years old as well. My wife Ella, who couldn't make it here tonight because she's watching the 7-year-old. Education is a very big issue for me. Again, I'll end this on the land use because that's always what comes up first with me. I went to PS 21. Some of you may know where that is, by Memorial Field. Louis Armstrong Middle School, and then Bronx Science, something Chris and I have in favor. And I also want to mention right now, at least, unless the other person shows up, the other person running, I am the only non-lawyer who is standing up here tonight. So basically, after Bronx Science, I went to UMass and came back, and for 30 years, I've been working to protect our neighborhoods. And I don't need to go into my public safety positions because I am 100% on board with Judge Grasso, who I am running with on the public safety line, which is important for everybody to know that we are absolutely eye to eye on everything. I don't say that to minimize it. I say it that I don't need to explain my positions because there is no daylight between our beliefs.
That's saving time.
It saves a lot of time. Education is very important, obviously. Having a first grader, which is a significant challenge. In addition, both of my parents are educators. My father taught at City College for 37 years. My mother taught at Hunter for 22 years. She ended up being the acting dean of the social work school, and my father was the faculty senate liaison at City College. And one thing that's very concerning, and again, my folks are 85 and 82 years old, very active, very independent, is the city's move to end Medicare provisions for city workers, for 250,000 retirees. This is a huge problem, and this is a problem, and I'm generally a pro-union kind of guy, but this is where the unions and the city have colluded to take away Medicare from 250,000 retired city workers and replace it with Medicare Advantage, which is no good. And this is a private insurance scheme. I will fight against that, as I am currently fighting against it, working with the retirees. I'm totally on board with them fighting this. They've already beaten the city twice on this issue, and the city continues to try to say that it's all done and done. It's going right back to court. In addition, and this is really important, I think, a lot of you know that in the last 3 years, we have had our own government working against us. And I'm someone who's worked with government many times. I've always been a consultant. I've had my own business for 25 years. Excuse me. My own business for 25 years as a land use and zoning consultant. I've consulted for pretty much every civic and homeowner group in Northeast Queens. In fact, I founded a number of them myself to give communities the voice that they need. And we have a lot of voice right here with Al, as you know, and the board. So I just want to say this. When land use discussion comes up tonight, don't forget, I beat the governor 2 years in a row to protect our neighborhoods from being destroyed by multifamily development. Thank you.
No problem. Let's let it go.
All right, so we'll come around and you have some index cards.
So Val, I'll
Yeah.
start walking around, you can start
Okay.
asking the questions.
Okay.
We had some people handing them over to us already.
All right, you got
Anybody
it.
have any questions?
Well, got it. All right, so, okay, so I'm gonna go with this first question that is for everyone regarding, the positions on both the soccer stadium and the casino. So I don't know if we should just go in some order. Al, do you have a preference of the first question? Should I just, the first one? No, regarding this to everybody, the soccer
Yeah, it's
and
the same as one of the
casino.
ones on the postcard.
Right, so, no, I'm saying to ask them.
Yeah,
Okay, we'll just go like this.
well, that, I believe, is more of a city council.
That's a city council.
That's a city council
Okay.
issue.
Yeah, I was, high school math teacher. This was never my forte, so yeah.
No worries. Okay. So, very briefly, for those of you who don't know, the city is trying to build a soccer stadium at Willets Point, as well as a casino next to Citi Field. I am 100% opposed to a casino being built on our public parkland. That's 65 acres of our parkland. 10 years ago, the city tried to give away that parkland to the Mets to build a 1 million square foot mall. And we went to court and stopped them. And I will never support that, and I will do everything in my power to stop that. For the soccer stadium, I am opposed to the soccer stadium. Does anybody know the traffic that we go through every day? Imagine having a soccer stadium, the Mets, a casino, hotels, and entertainment with a single ramp. That's all I have to say, and as a land use expert, this is no bueno. Anybody that I would consult with as a land use expert, I would tell them to go find another location. Thank you.
So with regards to the two proposals in terms of both the casino and the soccer stadium, I have a little bit of a different approach. I say if change is coming, embrace it to the best that we can, but make sure we're at the table in terms of the conversations to be had. So in terms of a casino, I am against the casino strictly in terms of putting one right there in such a dense area, in terms of Elmhurst and downtown Flushing and all of that. I don't think it brings about the best in us and the best in our community. I've certainly seen my share of Resorts World casino cases come on my desk, and trust me, that's not what we want in our community. When I was at the DA's office, I've seen so many folders coming from casinos. But on the other hand, if we can develop some areas to really bring in businesses, to really bring in jobs, to work with these developers, if they're coming in, we might as well sit down with them, be at the table with them, make sure that we're getting our cut, make sure our community folks are getting the jobs that they need, and those are my positions. Thank you.
Okay. Sure, absolutely. Give everybody a chance.
So even though it's not straight on for DA, I just have to say Steve Cohen, Melinda Katz is one of her #1 billionaire donors. It seems to me he should spend more time trying to figure out how to get the Mets a winning record than trying to build casinos in parking lots. Thank you.
I'm going to say something on that, and I'm not running for any office. Steve Cohen is spending millions and millions of dollars because he stands to make $500 million a year profit. So if you were going to make $500 million a year profit, would you give a crap about the surrounding neighborhoods, or would you be worried about making your money? Number one. Number two, Robert Loscalzo, who comes to our meetings and lives in the neighborhood, recently discovered one of the 3 people on the panel to decide who's going to get the licenses is a former Hofstra University president, who was the president of Hofstra University for 20-something years, who was instrumental in getting the new president her position. The new president wrote a 15-page dissertation on why a casino shouldn't go in the Hofstra area. So how do you think this guy's gonna vote? So if you read, it was in the New York Post. Check out the link. I'm quoted in it. Robert's quoted in it. I'll post it up on our page. I'll email it out to everybody. So now, one of 3 people, you think this isn't a setup? They're gonna say no to the Hofstra location, and what are they gonna look at? City Field.
And a point of information on that, a second person on that board is Vicky Bean. Vicky Bean was the deputy mayor under de Blasio, who was trying to upzone all of our neighborhoods. And I actually had to fight her against all of the fights that were going on. So you have 2 people out of 3. I don't know about the third person, but 2 people out of 3 are absolutely compromised when it comes to this issue. So I just wanted to say that.
Okay, so I'll give the DAs now a question. How would you deal with the mayor's plan to move more of the illegal immigrants to Fort Worth? Does anybody want to start?
Asylum seekers.
Yeah, well, whatever, I'm just reading it, so. You want to say something
Well,
about that?
I can only say as a judicial candidate, I would be fair and impartial.
Okay. Yeah.
I would oppose it. Housing migrants will increase crime. I would send them back to Joe Biden. That's what I would do.
You know what? I don't want to be too hard on Mayor Adams on that. It's easy to take shots on this issue, but this migrant problem, I like to call things that are like almost insoluble as like a Rubik's Cube problem. You know, I really don't know where we go with this thing. I know that it's a hell of a crisis for the country, and that our leadership in Washington, and I'm not just talking about Democrats and Republicans, they got to figure this thing out. Because we could debate about Fort Totten, we can debate about gymnasiums, we could debate and debate and debate. But at the core of it is this country has an unsolved immigration problem. And it's time for our people in Washington to put on their big boy and big girl pants and compromise for the good of the country and solve this problem. That's my opinion.
Okay, so I'm gonna go back to the city council, if that's okay. So, what is your position on city workers who were let go for refusing the experimental again, I'm reading right from here, so the experimental COVID vaccine came out as, I don't know what that's, EUA? Will you get their jobs back? Will you get them reinstated?
Well, just first and foremost, thank God we came out of the pandemic alive. I mean, a lot of folks that I know, and I'm sure you know folks as well, can't say the same. And so to the extent that there was a mandate to get vaccinated, to wear masks in public places and in close confined places, I was fully behind that, and I am behind that. And you know, if we can work and sit down and come to the table and try to work with other folks who are now out of a job but are otherwise qualified, because we know teachers are short-staffed, educators, other departments need more hands on deck. I'm willing to engage with them, but only under the caveat that it was the right thing to do to require vaccinations.
So I'm going to tell you a little personal story, which is that my father-in-law passed away 2 years ago because he got infected when he went in for a nosebleed at the hospital, by the hospital with COVID, right before the vaccine came out. And so he died. And I ended up taking the vaccine, and 5 weeks after I took the vaccine, I ended up having a reaction to it, which my cancer came back that I had. And this is actually, when this first came out, people were saying, oh, that's impossible. And now there's been a lot of peer review that 3 to 5% of people who have cancer or have immunodeficiency issues, they are very vulnerable to this. So the first thing I'll say is, I'm not an anti-vaxxer by any means. I think the vaccine was extremely successful for most people. But it is experimental. And they definitely rushed it, and they definitely did things that ultimately have impacted my life for the rest of my life. And that's an issue. Would I still get the vaccine? Probably, although I don't know if I would do it in the time frame that I did it at the time, because maybe it would have been less experimental when I got it and I wouldn't have had my cancer come back, right? On the other hand, there's no reason that these folks should not get their jobs back. And in fact, this it was just within the last month, I believe the city lost the lawsuit and they have to reinstate them. Several lawsuits. So there's no question that these people should get their jobs back, and they should get them, frankly, should get them with back pay.
Okay, so I want to go back over here. This is a general question, okay? This is a situation, I mean, that we've dealt with here, but this could obviously be anywhere, not necessarily in this neighborhood. But recently there was a problem with drug dealing in our neighborhood, and the neighbors took pictures of a red BMW, a black Audi, who were dealing drugs to supposedly, high school kids that were right there in the area. So we called the local police precinct, but unfortunately, they told us that was, there was nothing that they could do. So we're just looking to see how, why, what could be done, how can the situation be handled.
I want to jump right on that one. I alluded to it in my initial remarks. This is a politically driven crime wave. The police officers are put in the middle of this situation. B, felony drug sale, unqualified offense. Pills with fentanyl in them, unqualified offense. I have a good friend named Bridget Brennan. She's been the state special prosecutor for about the last 15, 20 years. Special narcotics prosecutor. I went to a breakfast where she spoke a couple of months ago with my campaign manager here, Natalie. She was talking about the current situation and the spike in fentanyl deaths with these street drug dealers that can get arrested 5, 10, 20 times and the judge can't put them in. I'm telling you, she practically had tears in her eyes. And that it's total BS. And what we have to do, and that's one of the reasons I'm here tonight, I am going to be hell on this legislature over this. And I'm going to be hell on anybody, and because we have a lot of Queens politicians, by the way. Queens Assembly people, Queens Senate people, and they vote for this garbage. And when I'm DA, I'm going to be talking to these people, and they're either going to be on board helping me overturn it, every one of you are going to know who it is. I don't have no secret Democrat handshake. I'm here to turn this around, and this is a disaster that didn't have to happen. That's my answer.
Oh, no, please. We're all answering it, right?
Yes, it is for everybody.
Similar answer, just a different type of lens. We're talking about, in the media, there's bail reform, which is sexy and everyone wants to talk about. Discovery reform is also a real and dangerous thing where prosecutors in the trenches don't have enough manpower, not enough resources to just really come together and get all of this voluminous discovery, turn it over to announce ready for trial. So then where does that leave us? It leaves us with broad categories of crimes that we have to decide. All right, is it a stabbing? No. Is it a shooting? No. Oh, it's just a drug sale. All right, then you know what? We're gonna have to get rid of it. Bad process makes bad policy. Although discovery was well-intentioned, it's clearly not working. We need to hammer this out and we need to fix it, or else we're gonna have more of these issues in our communities. Thank you.
Yes. Again, I have to agree with everything the judge said, but I have to add something. The source. Where is this coming from? The border. Secure the border. What's done to the youth in this country from middle America to every city with the fentanyl is a crime, and the history books will write it as a crime. Secure that border. Okay. We need to enforce American sovereignty once and for all.
Yes.
I know your answer is going to be, I have to be fair and impartial.
But
But I wanted to hand it to you if you wanted to say that.
Yes, well, no, actually, just a quick observation. I'm in court all the time, also as a defense attorney, and as an observation, I just wanted to say with the bail laws, I had a fellow who lived over here in Queens, Jackson Heights. He must have been arrested 5 times on the same street corner for selling crack. And every time he got an appearance ticket. And they kept calling me up in court and saying, your client got arrested again. Come on in. And he would be released with no bail. 5 times until I wanted to ask for bail. And eventually a judge said, that's it, and they said bail on him. But that's what's happening with these bail laws. And just as a personal observation, there has to be a correction with these bail laws.
So I'm going to bring it personal again. I do that a lot from people who know me, but a lot of people, a few people here know, but most people don't, that my other career outside of, general ne'er-do-well and causing trouble with, trying to protect our neighborhoods is that I'm a musician as well, and I have some albums out and some songs and movies and stuff like that. And I come from a big music scene, starting in the late 80s, early 90s. Some bands some of you may have heard of, they were very big in the 90s. They don't exist anymore, most of them, as is the way with bands. And one of the intersections with the music scene is drugs. It's a huge, huge, huge thing. And Bronx science, too. Kids, high-performing kids in high-pressure situations end up doing a lot more drugs than kids in regular high schools, et cetera, across the country. What I can tell you is that the one thing that really isn't being mentioned, the reason I'm bringing all of this up, is that the collateral damage is the deaths of our friends and our family members. And
I'm gonna open my mouth. Officers in the back, correct me if I'm wrong. Judge, correct me if I'm wrong. Crack is making a huge comeback on the scene. Jackson Heights used to be the free base house, and from what I'm hearing, crack is making a big comeback in a lot of communities.
But it's laced with fentanyl.
Thank you. Which makes it 100 times worse. Thank you. So I'm not wrong.
And it's making a comeback. It's not coincidental it's making the comeback in the context of these laws.
Right.
These laws are driving it.
Right.
And the hierarchy, I am a Democrat, but I call it out for what it is.
Right.
That's why I'm doing this, and we have to call it out together.
Exactly.
Because it's just gonna continue to get worse. And the so-called fix was that Katz showed up, wanted to be part of the press conference, totally bogus.
Yep. Thank you.
All right, anybody else on that one? Good, okay. So I'm gonna go back to the city council, because this has to do, okay, everyone running for office says they will lower taxes and make the neighborhood affordable. I have yet to see anyone keep that promise. Property taxes are getting unaffordable. How would city council be able to do something about that?
Look, I'm not here to stand before you and make promises I can't keep. I do know that one tangible issue that affects Northeast Queens is Local Law 97. That's essentially a tax that we can't pay. If you live in Clearview Gardens, if you live in any of these condo or co-op communities, I promise that I'll stand with you to make sure that we are not feeling the burdens of what the emissions from Manhattan and all these high-rise buildings, and what the purpose and the intent of this law was intended for, that we are shouldering the burdens in our community here in Northeast Queens. I do see that our other opponent, Tony Avella, isn't coming into the room. I would just like to point out that he did say on the record that we as a community need to bite the bullet when it comes to Local Law 97, and I'm here to tell you that that's unacceptable. Thank you.
So they're talking about taxes. So everyone running for office says they'll lower taxes and make our neighborhood more affordable. I haven't seen anyone keep that promise. Property taxes are getting more unaffordable. How would city council member do that?
You get background music, Tony.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, you're right, because we all talk about that when we run for office. But then and considering that I've been in the city council for 8 years and your state senator for 8 years, I've been out of office for 5 years. But you get in office and then you're faced with a budget. And sometimes you gotta take very hard decisions. The one thing I can say for a fact is that whenever a property tax came up when I was in the city council, I voted against it. In fact, some of you may remember when Mayor Bloomberg introduced the highest property tax ever 18.49%, which was the highest in the history of the city. I voted against it, and the mayor punished me for it. But I took the punishment, and I said, fine, because I thought it was wrong to increase the property tax without doing other things. And the property tax should only be, increased as a last resort. And one of the things that I've proposed, especially in the state Senate, because somehow you have to raise money. Prices go up. The union, union workers want more money every year. We have people leaving the city, unfortunately. The tax base is eroding, in my opinion, unfortunately. So what do? Well, the one tax I will vote for is the 1% owners of the city should pay more. And when I say the 1%, I'm not talking about somebody making $500,000 a year. I'm talking about somebody making $1 million a year in income. The second thing we need to do is the stock transfer tax. I'll just finish it.
Yeah.
This will be my last thing. The stock transfer tax. Do you know the state collects the tax for every stock that gets traded? The state collects it, and then Bazaar gives it back to the brokerage firms. So in effect, we don't keep it. It's billions and billions of dollars. If we were only to keep 10 to 20% of that, that could be $4 billion a year. I think that's a better way to do it than increasing the property tax for us. And by the way, the city of New York should have the same 2% property tax cap that the state has. I think it's a disgrace that we don't have that.
Thank you. Is this a rebuttal?
I haven't gone yet.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. No problem. So the first thing I want to say is what Chris said was absolutely right. And one of the things about Local Law 97 is that when it was passed, it was done maybe with the best of intentions, but the application has been terrible. And at the end of the day, the middle income, you talk about affordable housing, our co-ops and condos in Northeast Queens are the most affordable housing that we have. So if these places are saddled with millions upon millions of dollars in renovations and retrofitting, which is what would happen, and still would have to pay fines afterwards, still massive fines up to $1 million a year, it doesn't make any sense. They need to be carved out. Now, in terms of property taxes, let me say this. The property tax system in the city is broken, utterly broken. And there was a study done a few years ago that showed that actually our part of Queens and a few other areas have the highest property tax rates in the city. Now, why do I say this? Now, I live in a house in North Flushing that's worth about $1.2 million, okay? I'm paying over $10,000 in property taxes now. 10 years ago, I was paying around $2,200, something like that. Okay, Bill de Blasio has 2 houses in Park Slope. Those 2 houses are worth $5.5 million. And those 2 houses pay $5,000 a year in property taxes. There is something very, very wrong with the Department of Finance and the entire system. And every time that there is a move, we're going to try to fix it, we're going to try to do this, we're going to try to do it, nothing ends up happening. So one of the big powers of the City Council is oversight. Oversight is extremely important, and that is something I promise I will do as a City Council person to make sure that we pay our fair share, not the share that they are imposing on us. Thank you.
So I know you brought up co-ops also, so there is a question about the the law that they're trying to pass.
Local Law 97.
Yes, so.
It passed in 2018.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's
but
a
it's
law.
like 7 years or something?
No,
or what's,
that's-
Goes into implementation.
right, okay.
That's
So, all right, well, guys, you speak, because I don't know.
Well, what do you?
Yeah,
are you
so
calling
the
it?
question is, like, what, let me find it again, sorry. But, something about, what can be done regarding that? Where did it go?
So basically, what could be done to help the co-ops and condos
Yeah.
with this local law 97 and the impossible
Oh, how do you
debt that they
feel?
want
That's
to do?
it. That's it. How do you feel?
So the city council passed
That's
this
it.
law a number of years ago to start to address local law 97, climate change issues. Now, climate change is here. We all see it. We're all getting flooding in our homes now that maybe we never got before. That 1 in 25-year rainstorm is now happening once in every 2 years. So we have to address this. Now, does that mean that the burden of addressing climate change should be on your backs? No. The city and the state has to come up with funding to do this. Co-ops and condos, there's no way you can afford this. It's absurd. What I'm suggesting is that the city and state fund the project. Now, we can do that 2 ways. We can give direct assistance to the co-ops. There's a bill actually in the state legislature for a tax break equal to what they would have to pay. Or the city does the work. You know, when we had new meters installed, they didn't ask each and every one of us to do it. They hired somebody, Carnet hired somebody, and they came in. Why not do the same thing? The bill that's been introduced by our current council member to push it back is to push it back for 7 years. I don't think that's going to pass, and I don't think that's a good idea. Because 7 years from now, what's to say we can't do it then? And, you know, the issue of carve-out has come up. That should only be the last resort. Because if co-ops and condos at first breath get a carve-out, then why shouldn't everybody else get a carve-out? And before you know it, you know, we're not doing anything about climate change. There's no reason why the city and the state can't come up with a bond act or directly fund this. My position is, there's no way you should have to pay for this. Whatever we have to do, we'll do. But the first thing is, we should do it, but you shouldn't have to pay for it.
Thank you.
So I touched on this earlier, so I'll be very brief. I don't agree much with our current council member, but I do agree that a pushing back of the implementation of Local Law 97 would be appropriate. However, I should be the person, or I can be the person in City Council to help push it through, in the sense that it's not because I'm a Democrat and because she's a Republican, it's because she's such an extreme Republican that turns off so many of her colleagues in City Council. Who's really going to get behind her to really work together to get that bill passed? In that sense, I am here as that fresh, sensible voice to really work with my colleagues to get to the bottom of the solutions. And in terms of a carve-out, if we can get to it, I think it makes sense. You know, Paul touched on it. It is the last of housing affordability in Northeast Queens, but all of New York City. It's crushing. We have to do something about it, and we can't bite the bullet on this one.
Thank you.
So I'm working directly with the Co-op and Condo Board of Northeast Queens. This is Warren Schreiber, who represents Bay Terrace, and Bob Friedrich, who represents Glen Oaks. And the solution that Tony mentioned doesn't work. It doesn't work because the calculated amount that would have to be done by the city would be upwards of $400 billion. And on top of that, and I'll just give you an example. Glen Oaks has 2,900 apartments. 2,900 apartments. Those 2,900 apartments, in order to do the retrofitting for that 2,900 apartments, would be $24.5 million. And they would still have to pay a $750,000 fine per year. And if they put in heat pumps, which are the greener approach, it would be $36 million to do that. So we don't have the resources to do this. There needs to be a carve-out provision, which was supposed to be in the original law in 2018. Co-ops and condos, particularly owner-occupied co-ops and condos, were supposed to be carved out. It should be based on income. It should be based on property valuation. You can set it up that we're not talking about $20 million co-ops in Manhattan that, the building is worth $250 million. We're talking about middle income and moderate income co-ops who make up what's left of the middle class in our city, protecting themselves and not having to go through this, particularly since the technology doesn't yet reach the level that would then get rid of the fines. So how can you keep fining? It's a law that is doomed to fail. And therefore, those folks, you will literally bankrupt these middle income co-ops and condos. So I will do everything in my power. They have sued the city right now. I am absolutely 100% behind it. And if they can come up with a carve-out provision, that includes movement to get them to do what they need to do with retrofitting, but that they're not going to be penalized and that they have financial assistance, great. But if not, they should not be penalized by this and they should not have to go through it. Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to come back to this side. Oh, hi. Aw.
Wait.
Let's do that one next.
This is
That one
right.
next.
This is more important.
Somebody left their headlights
So
on.
we love Whitestone. I love Whitestone. Thank you for everything. I am grateful that you came to my school, PS 193. These two ladies went to PS 193 and did a whole presentation on civics. They were the only ones that weren't elected representatives to go to any school with in New York City, ladies and gentlemen. This was a citywide initiative. And they were invited, and they did such a good job that all of the kids had a great time, right, guys? And this is what you get. Thank you, Deborah and Regina. And thank you, sweetheart. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
That's more important than all of you guys. Sorry.
Alrighty, so, back over here. So, do you think that the most recent change to the bail reform law in the just released budget for the state is too much, not enough, or just right? Okay, you raised your hand first.
Not enough. It doesn't tackle the issue of dangerousness. It does not, let me get it. It just tackles the issue of returning, but it doesn't tackle the issue of dangerousness. That's the most important thing, is that does the judge think the defendant is too dangerous and needs the discretion? So, but I'm against the whole bail reform to begin with. It never should have been passed anyway. So what they did is they tweaked it, and Hochul took a little bow, and then wants to ban gas stoves, and that's it, and everything's fixed. It's not. And I'm sure the judge will elaborate. He's waiting, so.
Ready to go.
Could be like tag team wrestling, Your Honor. I could just.
Okay. So, obviously, I think you got a hint of what I said earlier about this when I said it was bogus. But this is not even this so-called least restrictive mean thing that, and I keep pointing out, Melinda Katz showed up next to the governor smiling, waving, bowing. Totally bogus. It isn't far enough. Bogus. So I'm speaking, my background. NYPD 30 years, judge for 13 years. I ran arraignments for New York City. It's a dishonest construct. I'm going to tell you why. Because they're still leaving in the part about the judge is only supposed to hold somebody on bail in a qualified offense in order to return to court. Dangerousness was not put back in the law. But really what the governor wants people to think, and Heastie wants people to think, and Cousins wants people to think, and Melinda Katz wants people to think, wink, wink, nod, nod, we can now have judges keep dangerous people in because they're dangerous. The judges are being used. I talk about how cops are being used as scapegoats. This is where judges are being used as scapegoats. It's a dishonest statutory construct, and it needs to be called out, and I'm calling it out, and I'm not going to stop. That's my answer.
Would you like to respond?
No.
Everything's
He's gotta be fair and impartial.
I will be fair and impartial.
I got you back.
okay.
Listen, can I say one thing about running for judge? He's not littering the community by putting up his flyers all over every patch of greenery. So kudos to you on that. There's another person running for judge who's putting signs up all over completely illegally. Okay? So if he wants to be a judge, he should know the law. So kudos to you for that.
So, thank you. They seem to be a hotter topic on this end, sorry. So, anyway, actually this one is for Tony. So,
They knew you were coming, so they prepared questions.
yeah, there was some
I
people
told them you were
that
coming.
were like the general ones, but some were specific. So I was trying to do mostly general, but this, now that you're here. So anyway, so you once supported term limits and swore to us you would never run for a third term. What changed?
It was a consecutive third term that I said that. There's
okay.
a difference.
Okay,
Under the law, with term limits, you're allowed to run for 2 4-year terms, except it gets complicated with redistricting. When Mayor Bloomberg overturned that law, to his utter shame, he allowed himself to be elected for a third term. 27 council members went along with him. I was one of the council members who got up and said they should all be ashamed of themselves and voted out of office. And believe it or not, even though they all violated the covenant we had, not one of them was voted out of office. But the law allows you to come back after you sit out a 4-year term. When I served in the council, it was 2009. It's now about 15 years later. Big difference. There's nothing wrong with running again. In fact, a lot of people are running for other terms in the city council. I believe I still have something to offer. Experience matters. Believe it or not, I've had some people who get elected to the council, and I advise them it's not going to be what you think it's going to be. And after they get elected, they say, you know, you're right. It's a totally different scenario. I wish we would have known. You need to know what it's like to try and get things passed, to try and work with the agencies. I'm not kidding when I say experience matters. You don't have the time to learn the job. And remember, this is only a 2-year term. This is still only a 2-year term that we're running for. After that, then the 4-year cycle kicks in. So whoever gets elected doesn't have time to learn the job.
You know, you might as well just stay there, sorry. No, because you weren't here earlier when we asked for everybody to talk about the soccer and the casino. Yeah, you weren't
Sure.
here for that, your position on that development.
Well, as some of you may remember, I was the lead plaintiff in the lawsuit against the 2 biggest real estate firms in the city of New York to take away the parkland to build a mega mall. We won that lawsuit. The interesting thing is now, you know, the Mets, and of course I'm a big Mets fan, although it hurts to be a Mets fan these days, big time, have come up with the proposal, with no specifics yet, by the way, of a casino on the parkland. It's interesting that the Mets owner, Steve Cohen, has had these listening sessions, and he invites people to go. They get to talk to him. They get to see the plaques and the posters. I said to him, I don't know how you address the parkland issue, because the lawsuit that I was the lead plaintiff in says, one, you have to replace the parkland, and two, if you're gonna take away parkland, you have to go to the state legislature for approval. I don't know how he accomplishes both. He may be able to get approval from the state legislature, but I don't know how you replace the parkland. So that's the first thing that has to be addressed. Because if you can't address that, the rest is, just talk. Apparently, they did a poll, there's a poll out, and people support the casino. I'm not necessarily in favor of casino. The soccer stadium on the Willits Point property, I'm not so much in favor of that either. I think we have enough activities in Flushing Meadows, Corona Park, but I want to see what, a good elected official wants to see what the community is interested in. And apparently the community likes the idea of the casino, at least on the west side. The soccer stadium may help pay for all the other things that are going on, affordable housing, and I will say affordable and accessible housing. That's a new term that's coming up. And the school that's going to be built. So there's a lot that yet has to be done. And you also have to remember that the city has never fulfilled, and this is a requirement at least from my perspective, has never fully done the traffic improvements that it okayed as part of the plan to approve development on Willits Point. So before you talk about a soccer stadium, where's the traffic improvements?
All right, well,
I need
do you
to
want?
rebut to that,
Oh,
yes.
okay, sure.
Absolutely.
Oh,
Yes.
well, you
yes.
know what?
No, if we're doing
I
rebuts,
need
I
to
would have
respond to
rebutted
this.
something he said earlier.
I need to
Well,
respond to this.
You know what? Because there,
I would have said something had he been the first person to speak,
And
so.
he wasn't here before, so.
So I'd like to make a rebuttal to this, which is, I'm the head of Save Flushing Meadows Corona Park. That's, we fighting the casino on that parkland, as I mentioned. I was at one of the plaintiffs on the lawsuit as well, one of the 27 plaintiffs. So I'm very well aware of the fight that Tony and I did to fight the mall that was going there. The problem is, I'm going to read you Tony's quote from the Queen's Chronicle when he was interviewed a few months ago. Previously, Avella has said that parkland is sacred. So when it comes to the future of the 50 acres of asphalt next to Citi Field, which Mets owner Steve Cohen hopes to transform, he has been skeptical, noting last week that he was the lead plaintiff in the 2017 State Court of Appeals case that halted a shopping mall proposed for the site because it is parkland. For any development there to occur, be it a casino or otherwise, he said you'd have to get past the parkland issue. There are ways, but you'd have to do it. One way would be for the state legislature to alienate the site for a specific use and to approve of replacement parkland nearby, though Avella said it does not need to be contiguous. Were that to happen, though, Avella said he would not be opposed to a casino per se. It's a possibility, he said. I am opposed to a casino, period, at that site, number one. Number two, he mentioned that there was a survey done that there's broad support for the casino. Well, his own consultants are the ones who have done the survey. And we actually interviewed some of the people who went door to door because some of them came to my house. The people who came to my house did not know what they were carrying. They said, this is about greening up this site. And I have the paperwork. I actually have pictures of it and I have it. We then spoke to another person who worked directly. And that person said, we were told by North Shore, that's North Shore Strategies, which is Tony's consultant, to get to a yes. Whatever the issue is with this, whatever's going to get someone to say yes to this, whether it's green space, more green space, or jobs, or economy, get them to a yes so that we can mark them as a yes. If this is the level of consultants that Tony Avella is hiring, I think he has a problem.
I have to
All right,
respond.
thank you.
I have to
So-
respond to that.
Okay, well, wait a second.
No, I have to respond to
Wait,
that.
wait, you're gonna get a chance to
Wait,
respond.
I
You're gonna
know.
get a chance
No.
to-
Well,
You're gonna get a chance to respond.
He just made a personal
said something.
attack
All right, hold
on
on,
my
I was
consultant.
here. I was here.
It's okay, you're
Hold
consulting.
on, hold
You
on.
know-
Directly.
Hold
You
on,
know,
hold on,
I
hold
gotta
on.
say something.
Hold on, guys, we need to hold on. Let Val finish,
Yeah, let me
and then we'll
finish.
take it from there. Val, where are you going?
So I was gonna go into Clearview Gardens. Somebody asked a question. I was kind of going with that. I mean, he wasn't here earlier, so then Paul wanted to just say something, and I allowed him to do that. I thought it was fine. But anyway, let's go, okay, so this is for you guys also. Are you for or against overdevelopment? In Clearview Gardens, we are zoned R6, and next to us, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to read people's handwriting. Okay, so next to us, we are zoned, we're getting houses 3 and 4 stories high. Will you stop it and continue?
Be in an R6 zone.
Zone, okay, sorry, I couldn't read it.
And I can add something to that, because I just saw a house where they
Okay, so I guess that was
excavated
your question
10
then.
feet. 10 feet, that means that they're gonna go underground, and the north part of Queens, we have the water table very high. So you cannot excavate, you cannot do basements. So I need your response on that, overdevelopment. At least around Clearview Gardens, which is all Whitestone. And we are affordable housing up now. But the way it's gonna be, we are not gonna be able to afford it, at least I won't. So how do you respond to that, the overdevelopment?
The overdevelopment is what she's asking
If there's
about.
any one of us who says they're in favor of overdevelopment, kick us out.
Well,
No.
it's happening.
Well, we've got to do more to stop it. You know, when I was in the
I
council.
know Paul Graziano
Yeah.
is against it.
And so am I. And as you may remember,
Oh, I haven't heard you, so.
I downzoned, when I was in the council, I downzoned every neighborhood to stop overdevelopment. Paul helped me. But there's always, you know, like you always have to build a better mousetrap. When I was in the council, this is 15 years ago. So even though we downzoned the neighborhood, now you have to come back and see where are the developers getting around it. Even with the downzoning I did, there were still things the city didn't do, like address the buildings department, address the Board of Standards and Appeals. So there's a lot of things we still need to do, but you need to get the entire city council together. Remember, I was chair of the zoning committee, and I not only helped downzone this neighborhood, but helped downzone other neighborhoods throughout the entire city. And you know something? The real estate industry is the only industry in the city of New York that if you make a poor business decision, and I'll explain what I'm talking about, the city makes you whole. In other words, you own a business, you make a bad decision, you eat it. With the real estate industry and the Board of Standards and Appeals, you're a developer, you buy a piece of property, you spend too much for it. You can then go to the buildings department, the Board of Standards and Appeals, say, hey, I need to increase development, I need to increase the zoning because I need to make a return. And guess what? They'll give it to them. It's the only industry where they make a stupid mistake, they're gonna be made whole. That has to change. Overdevelopment has to stop. We have enough here. The governor tried to, override local zoning. Paul helped stop that. A lot of us did. I held my own press conference against that. Our elected officials worked very hard to stop that, but that's not to say she may not stop to bring it back again. So we have to be very active, because there are people, especially from, and I hate to knock Manhattan, who think all of the city of New York should be an apartment building. We live here for a reason. We spend our lives here, we spend our fortune buying a house here. We want to protect it. We lose this sort of quality of life here, it'll be gone from the city forever. So I think we'll all agree on that.
I know this is Paul's bread and butter, so he might take a little time talking about it. I want to keep and maintain the integrity of our neighborhoods, and I am against overdevelopment. Thank you.
So the first thing I want to address is Clearview Gardens, where you live, yes? Where do you live in Clearview?
Clearview
No,
Gardens.
what's,
Ford Corporation, 166th Street. 166.
166th Street, okay.
But
yeah.
we get the racers.
Yeah, well, you're right by PS 209,
Yeah.
where my son goes to school, that's why I was
Yeah.
asking. Okay, so, first of all, Clearview Gardens is zoned R32, not R6, just to let you know. an R32.
R32?
R32,
I
which
was
is
told that I
which
was
is a lowest density multifamily zone that we have. And the gardens are done that way, and they really can't expand within the gardens. Now, the area around Clearview Gardens is zoned R2A, which again, I surveyed all of these neighborhoods, and Tony, as the zoning chair, moved them politically. So we had a great partnership in getting these done, it's true. But the thing is, and I said this at our last debate, time doesn't stop in a vacuum. And as Tony said, he's been out of office for 5 years. In the last 3 years, we had the Speaker of the City Council try to destroy our communities by eliminating single-family zoning in the city of New York. We then had the governor last year try to eliminate single-family zoning across the entire state of New York. And then we had her this year trying to destroy our communities everywhere. Here, around our train stations, increasing density by 700% in some cases in Queens, and in other places by 3,000%. I was there. I stopped the speaker. I went to, out of 59 community boards, I spoke in front of 37 of them in 6 weeks. I got elected officials to back off. The speaker did this. Why was he doing it? He was trying to run for controller. That's what this was all about. And as soon as it was dead, it dropped like a lead balloon. The governor came up with this last year. She tried to get rid of our single-family zoning. I created a statewide coalition called SaveOneFamilyNewYork.org. I created this statewide coalition. We stopped her. I warned everybody, and I'm a Democrat. I warned everybody, if she gets reelected, this is coming back. And within 1 week of her reelection, she announced that housing and bail reform were going to be her two big issues. Well, bail reform, fail. Housing, beyond a fail. And I stopped her again 2 weeks ago. And Tony said, well, that was really the elected officials. And my answer is, the elected officials listened to me and our huge coalition across the state of New York, because we told them that if they did this, they were all going to be thrown out of office. All of them, every single one of them. And the Democrats who were on our side understood. They already lost a lot of seats in the last cycle, and they're going to lose more seats next year if they don't understand that their proposal is going to destroy the state of New York. And that's where I'm coming from. Thank you.
Thank you. So I know you wanted to say something else.
I
Give you another.
I just think it's awful to make a personal attack, I guess, at me through my consultant. First of all, when you hire a consultant, they do a lot of jobs. The Mets owner has hired every consultant imaginable for his project. Good for him. I don't know what they're doing, but you know something? I don't believe in personal attacks. I really think that does a disservice. I think that does a disservice to the Democratic primary we're all in. Because at the end of the day, our objective is to get rid of a Republican incumbent who's totally ineffective. So, I'm sorry, I just have to say that. I think that's wrong.
All right. Val's got two more questions. We have like 5 or 6 of
Yeah,
the same questions.
so a few of these, and again, you weren't here before, Tony, so this one will be directed toward just you. If the county party that's now endorsing you did everything in their power to remove you when you didn't caucus with them, how can you honestly say you will be working for us, your constituents?
I assume you're talking about the Independent Democratic Conference. When I sat in the Democratic Conference, let me take a step back. Why was I elected by you for 8 years in the council and 8 years in the Senate? I was elected to represent you and to get the most I could get done for you. That is the only reason I've ever run for public office. Sitting in the Democratic Conference as a senator when they were in the minority, Gotta tell you, totally ineffective. Totally ineffective. Now, I could sat there, twiddle my thumbs for 8 years, actually it was 4 years, in the conference. Or there's this other group sitting on the other side of the table that has a working relationship with the Republicans. Well, gee, you know, if I can go to that side, I can get more money for the schools in my district. I could get more money for senior centers, 3 of which were going to close. Those 3 centers were kept open because of the money I got by sitting on this side. Did I change my vote? Nope. Not at all. I still voted the same way, the way you elected me. And if it was such a big deal, why are those same people now supporting me to run for the city council? The State Senator Toby Stavitsky, Assemblyman Ed Braunstein, Assemblyman Dan Rosenthal, who voted against bail reform, by the way, Assemblyman David Weprin, the borough president. Why do I have the support of animal rights groups? Why do I have the support of the environmental groups? And I don't know if Christopher mentioned it, but today we both got the endorsement of the UFT. So there's a reason why these groups are supporting me. There's a reason.
All right, so, yeah, so, so the only other, that there's a few that are all similar, for Tony again, sorry, is that,
This is the last one, guys, don't
yeah,
forget.
that you've been inactive, right? So there's some people that are concerned, like, where have you been? You
I know
know?
where this is coming from.
Oh, listen, don't shoot the messenger.
No, I know. First of all, when I was in the city council and the state senate, that's 16 years representing you. My wife and my wife is sitting in the back there, Judy. I never took a real vacation because I didn't want to be away from the district to help you. 16 years, did not take a vacation. So after I lost in 2018, the first thing I had to do was close the office. I got to tell you, that takes a lot of time. And guess what? We took a vacation. Oh, God. Oh, what a terrible thing I did. I took a vacation. We went on a cruise. And lately, we went on another cruise. And COVID hit. But meanwhile, I had been active in my own way. But the difference was I wasn't in office. There were certain things you can do in office, and there were certain things you can't do. It's up to you to decide whether or not that so-called absence is in any way meaningful. Does it really matter that when I was in office, I took care of my family, we went on vacation for a while? I think I was entitled to that after 16 years of never going on a vacation. But I still lived in this community for 30 years. We still live here. I still care about Whitestone. It's up to you to decide, does that have any real meaning, or is that just one of those I gotcha questions?
All right.
I'm gonna
well,
say,
anyway.
I wanna thank
Yeah.
all of the
I
constituents.
just want to say that
Yeah, you're gonna be more.
as a judicial candidate, I will be fair and impartial.
I'm gonna get killed for this in about 2 minutes. But if you guys wanna take 30 seconds to do a quick wrap up,
Statements?
raise your hand if you, or just stand up one by one if you wanna do it. All right, we'll go this way. 30 seconds of quick closing statement, please. I'm gonna get killed, okay?
Okay, very quickly, congratulations for their endorsements of the UFT and for Tony's endorsement from the League of Conservation Voters. The League of Conservation Voters I didn't apply for because they supported the governor's housing compact. And the UFT I didn't apply for because they support giving retirees Medicare Advantage. So sometimes you have to actually do the thing for your constituents instead of for the unions or for groups that don't represent you. So if you want that kind of person representing you,
here I am. Thank you.
Thank you.
30 seconds.
Yeah, 30 seconds. Mom is hitting retirement age in the next year and change. And so yes, I am excited to be endorsed by the UFT, and no, I am not happy with how they are handling that situation. They're not mutually exclusive. With that being said, I have a great deal of respect for my colleagues and opponents here. Thank you to everyone who had me. But a vote for me really is a vote for the future. Thank you.
2-second claps.
Again, I want to thank We Love Whitestone for having this, and all of you for coming out tonight. I've always tried to put my interest behind your interest. In other words, your interest ahead of my own. I tried to set an example when I was in the Senate and the council. And I'll give you an example. When the city council voted itself a pay raise, I thought that was outrageous. I refused to accept it. Not only refused to accept it, but it never went into my pension. Some of you know the thing about that was 30 seconds. So I've always tried to put good government first, your issues equally first, and it was always an honor to represent you.
Okay.
And I'd like that honor again. It's up to you.
Judge.
Thank you. Great being with everybody. You probably figured out by now I am not a traditional politician in any shape of the word. I don't process things as what would the Democrats do, what would the Republicans do, what would the independents do. I've got 44 years criminal justice experience. I walked away from a great job with over 2 years on it, with the permission of my lovely wife, because I want to do the right thing for you. I've got a public safety line in addition to the Democrat line. Whether you're a Democrat, a Republican, or an independent, I seek your support to help me help you. Wonderful being here tonight with everyone.
Let me say the importance of a two-party system. All the ills we have in the criminal justice system is because, in essence, we have a one-party system in New York City. Quite frankly, we have a one-party system in New York State. We live in an upside-down world, and everybody's wondering why. And certainly, if you look at the crime in the big cities across the country, there's one constant: the cities are controlled by the Democratic Party. Okay. So I will be on the Republican-conservative line, and look for me, and I will be out there in the campaign trail with the issues and see how it goes. But we need Republican voices, or we're not going to make it, quite frankly. We're just going to be a city that loses people. Thank you.
I just want to say thank you, and thank you to the association for inviting me tonight. And I just want to remind you that when you go to vote, don't stop at the first, municipality, or Republican, Democrat, whoever you vote for. Keep going down the line. Please vote for me as a judge. It's William David Shanahan, and I would really appreciate it. In last year's election, there was about a 50% of the people didn't vote after governor or attorney general. So please keep going down the line, and please vote for me.
Turn the page sometimes.
And that's a wrap. Right? Thank you.